everyone, and welcome to game week 9 of From the Terrace, by the fans, for the fans. As you can see, Connor is not with us today, but I am joined by the two Dans. I've got Wiltshire, and I've got Welwyn. Hello, boys. Let's crack on. What a day it's been. We're pretty hot off the press today, to be fair. Only a few hours ago, Chelsea and even Roman Abramovich himself came out with a statement to say that they parted ways with Frank Lampard, club legend. They've had to let him go. Rumours are saying that Thomas Tuchel will be confirmed on an 18-month contract to take his place within the next couple of days, perhaps in time for the Wolves game. There's only one place to start, really. You've had a few hours to mull it over. Dan, as a Chelsea fan, what do you think? What have you made of today's events?
I've taken a little while to digest everything. Sympathetic, yes. Shocked, no. I think it's important to. One thing I've been trying to do recently is split the manager Frank Lampard with the player Frank Lampard, and I think that it's important to do that because at the end of the day, at a club like Chelsea, regardless of your stand in the club or what you've done, if results aren't good enough, you get the sack. It's always been that way. It will probably always be that way because it's bred results. It's got us success in the past. And the stats don't lie. The trophies don't lie. Regardless how many managers we've had, we're the most successful team over the last 20 years in England. So it breeds success. And I've been watching Chelsea over the last few weeks and the bad run of form and sometimes it happens in football. But for the first time in a long time recently, I didn't want to watch the games. I thought they were aimless. I thought there was no spark, there's no tactical noose there that could have changed something for us. It felt like it was continuing just to go in the same way. And when it gets like that, there's only one man who's going to go, and it's the manager. And that's simple with football. The players aren't going to go. They've just assembled a squad of 220 million new players. So Lampard was always going to walk a tightrope, and he's gone now. Yeah.
A lot's been made of that. Obviously, the 226 odd million that was spent in the summer. Quite a few players brought in, a lot of players with a lot of promise that haven't really hit the ground running. You touched on it there, Dan, and there's been a lot of talk of, on the tactical side of things, questioning his starting lineups, questioning the consistency of his starting lineups and whether he knew his best team. Obviously, I watch most of the games with you, and you're extremely emotional when it comes to Chelsea. And there's been shouts of making substitutions too late, even when a change is needed in the game. For you, Dan Welton, obviously with all those things considered, against the prior success that he did have, because let's not forget, before this blip, let's call it a blip, it's 8 games. You can't really call it a slump yet. Is it? They were on a 17-18 game unbeaten run before this. So is it a case of he had to go, or do you think it's a bit of an overreaction, being made too quick, a bit knee-jerk?
I think he did have to go for a chance of top 4 realistically. Like Dan said, you're watching it, there were aimless games. I look at some of the 8 games they haven't won recently. You can't really put a standout performance. Well, they're actually unlucky not to get a win there. They've actually been poor in a lot of games. I remember, even watching Chelsea versus Arsenal, which is a huge rivalry. And Arsenal, who couldn't buy one at the time, took Chelsea to the cleaners, 3-1. I feel a bit for Lampard because a lot of new players have been brought in, and with so little time on the training pitch, how can you find out who your best 11 is? You've got new players who have to be bedded in, have to play because they've spent the money, but also it seems people like Mason Mount, even Tammy Abraham to a certain extent, kind of deserve a starting place because of what they did last season. So do you cater for the new guys who don't quite know how to play yet, or do you cater for people who helped you get for last season? So it's difficult, but he had to go for me, unfortunately.
Yeah, fair. fair enough. I mean, on that point, you mentioned obviously the new players bedding into a system and bedding into the team. Obviously, today there's been a lot of talk about Tuchel and the fact that he's German and the fact that he's, being brought in to maybe help the likes of Havertz, the likes of Werner, who have either not hit the ground running or they had a great start with Werner and now he's really dropped off and looks bereft of confidence. Do you think they were Frank Lampard signings, Dan Wiltshire?
What, the Germans that came in the summer?
I mean not just those two, but generally, obviously, there's been a lot of talk with previous reigns and previous managers over whether they have final control over the squad.
Yeah.
What do you think about sort of what's going on in their background?
I don't think they were Frank Lampard signings. I don't think there's many signings that come into Chelsea that are manager signings. It's pretty clear the way the club is run. There's a hierarchy. You report to Marina, and she does the dealings in the transfer market. But essentially, it's down to the board. The manager will obviously give what he thinks they need over the course of a season and where he thinks the areas we can improve. But there's no way that Frank Lampard was given 220 million to spend. It was the board spending that money. It wasn't like they said to him, "Oh, Lampard, we trust you completely, and here's money to go and spend out in the summer, see what you can do." It wasn't the case. And I just want to go back a little bit with the tactic side of things. And this is not even a go at Lampard because I love the man. I think he's brilliant, and I really do think he can go on and be a successful coach. But at the end of the day, you can say it's a blip for 8 games, not winning the games. And Dan touched on it. We were losing against teams that were all in the top 6, 7. There didn't seem to be a situation where I thought he's going to improve it. There's a change that's going to be made that's going to get us out of this slump and potentially make us more solid or whatever. Last season, he did a little bit. He went to a back 5 and kind of, was able to adjust slightly with the players that he had. This year, it kind of felt like because of the signings, it was kind of like, well, I have to get him into the team somehow. How do I work it? I need to find a way to play. I've got to finally stamp my way of playing now. And he kept changing the players. I think there were 17 different combinations up front for us this season. And it just didn't feel like it was going to have an idea of, okay, we're losing games, but at least we know that, we're kind of getting there. I've kind of seen something gel together here. It wasn't that. It was disjointed. And yeah, having new players always is a tricky one, especially for the amount of money that they cost. I think bringing in, the German lads over in the summer, I think I said it before, come into a new country in the midst of a pandemic, can't see family members, can't see friends, can't gel with the squad really. You can't go out and have the dinners and the nights out that you normally would. So that's always going to be a difficult thing. But you would have thought with the talent there that it would have sparked a little bit. I know we had that 18 game unbeaten run before, but it never really kicked into gear.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I mean, it's something that was actually included in the club statement. They said, it's hard to part ways with a club legend at any time, especially one as legendary as Frank Lampard. But it was that lack of direction or lack of light at the end of the tunnel for this spell that you're on. Obviously, moving forward, it looks like Thomas Tuchel's coming in. It looks like an 18-month contract. The fact that we've said, you've said about them not being Lampard signings, is there a little air of, with the transfer ban last year, bringing someone like Lampard in? Do you think maybe this was always the plan, Welton? Not necessarily the plan to sack him, but he was never actually seen as a potential long-term manager at that club.
I'm not. What else you were saying last season when he came in? It was all about the new direction they're going in. We want to breed some of the youngsters that we've seen go out on loan and not do much and bring them into the team. And to a certain extent, Lampard did a good job of that last season. This season, clearly there were things that needed that they couldn't get in house which why we brought the German lads to improve and to get from top 4 to title challenges. But at the points Dan touched on there, I think Lampard himself not being ready for the job, maybe taken a bit too young, not having the experience to, pick 11 and stand by that. As Dan said, there's 70 combinations up front already. It's like a Rubik's Cube, if you've never done one before. You just keep turning until the colours get the right one. You don't really know what you do.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I mean, a lot of the questions are obviously what's next with Tuchel. But what's going to be next for Lampard? You obviously mentioned, or Dan mentioned about him going on to be a successful manager. Where do you see his next move being, or is he going to take some time out? What do you think he's going to do, and how he's going to sort of react to this? He's just released his statement saying thank you to the club and everything like that. How does he move forward?
I think I don't think his reputation will be damaged too much. I mean, going into Chelsea is a huge job. I think a lot of people said at the beginning, look, he's still young. He'll probably get a lot of experience from it, but I don't think a lot of people will be looking at thinking, oh, we're not going to touch Lampard with a barge pole. If I were, I'd probably give a year off and actually study the game from a managerial point of view a bit more. Yeah. Maybe go abroad and, like Mourinho did, he just, under like Bobby Robson or something like that, he'd go out and just study different ways, different, cultures of football, get a bit more understanding of it. And then if he, takes a Premier League job, fantastic. But I think his next job potentially could be, a decent team in the Championship, similar to what he took at Derby. If you can take up to the Premier League, then it's much better than taking a Premier League job and getting relegated.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I mean, obviously, it's hard to see him getting a job that's with a club on the same sort of level of Chelsea as his next job anyway. But, in the long term, maybe he will get back and maybe even go back to Chelsea. We don't know. We've seen Mourinho go back there. So that's Abramovich, he never comes out and says anything. But he did say Frank Lampard will always be welcome with open arms at Stamford Bridge. So, maybe that has opened up to a managerial return in the long run. And you touch on a good point there about maybe taking a team on the up rather than, getting into a dogfight in the Premier League. That'll all depend on him, I guess. What do you see, Dan? What do you reckon? What should he do?
I think maybe in Premier League terms, like a small club like Spurs. I'd say I like the idea of him sort of going abroad and studying the game a bit more, like Dan said. I think, there's no harm in going to, managing in Holland, Spain, Germany, or there's no harm in going abroad and broadening your horizons and learning the game a bit more. At the end of the day, I would love to find a manager that went from managing a team in the playoff final to then going to manage one of the top European teams one of the top European teams in general. Regardless of how far you think we've fallen in recent years, we are a huge club. And at the end of the day, it's difficult to make that jump. I think people underestimate management sometimes, look at it like it is an easy job. Like it is something that just comes hand in hand with being a great player, that you just walk into a dressing room and know how to deal with, young players and how to get them through bad spells. And you need to lean on experience because it comes with experience. And I think one of the things we was talking about recently, which I think really did hinder him, was not having an experienced head there to fall back on when times were tough. Someone that had been there, been around the block and said, you know what, take a step back. I've been in this situation before and this is what I would do. This is what I think. Bouncing ideas off Jody Morris, who, has, as we said before, has done nothing in the game in terms of coaching and management, in general. You're bouncing the same ideas off each other. You're both sitting there saying, well, yeah, this is what we should do. You don't know. You need experience. Experience in any job's vital. That's why people want experience in every level of every job. So go away, learn the game. I think he's a young man. He's 3 years into management. He could fully well go up to Celtic, go up to, do what Gerrard's done. Go and manage somewhere. Go and get some trophies and under your belt and learn how to manage a team where you're going to get time, where you're not going to be under, a microscope non-stop. And then come back. I'd love for him to manage us again. I love it. I've loved every second of it up until the last few months, last couple of months.
Yeah. He won't be short of help. When you say about experience, let's not forget his uncle's been there, done it for 30 odd years at the top level of management. So he had, maybe not on the training pitch, but he always had someone there on the end of the phone. Mourinho, well, depending on his ties with Tottenham now, but
but day to day, it's different, you've got someone on the phone, but it's day to day just to react to situations with you, or even during matches.
Yeah, true. No, you're right. Well, moving forwards, obviously Tuchel's going to come in. He's not the oldest manager, the most experience. He's had, sort of 3 main jobs now. Most recently at PSG, where he did all right. Dan, Germany's the only country you've ever been to, so you must be an expert. What do you make of that likely appointment? How do you see that going?
To be honest with you, I put Tuchel at Dortmund and PSG. They weren't long-term affairs. He fell out with the hierarchy. And in Chelsea's case, that's worked the best. Mourinho, Conte, short-term stuff, get good solutions. Dan said there, their model has had bread trophies every season almost. They're the most successful team the last 20 years, and that's the way they've done it. Short-term deals, short-term managers. Tuchel, I think, is quite exciting. I think he showed promise at Dortmund. Obviously, had in a one-man team league in France. But as we said there about Lampard going up to Scotland potentially, Tuchel has learned the winning mentality. He's worked with big stars who have big egos. So to go into Chelsea, I think is quite smart. Him being German as well, he probably has kept him more of an eye on Havertz and Werner and potentially get the best out of them. But personally, I think it's a very good move. I'm surprised they've done it mid-season rather than maybe bringing in. But if he's there now available, take him.
I think ideally, interim manager. I've got a feeling that interim manager is probably the first protocol for us, but it was whether it really made sense. And I think in the end they kind of looked at Tuchel and was like, okay, he's available, he's got the CV. Should we just get the job done now and see what we can do for the next 6 months of the season? But yeah.
I mean, obviously you're not happy with events overall, but as a next step, do you think he's probably the best option for you at the moment? Would you have gone another way if you were on the board?
Yeah, I speaking to from this morning about a potential shortlist that I'd have had, and Nagelsmann at Leipzig excited me. He's a young coach, forward thinking. I like Hassan Hutel at Southampton. Is that Hassan Hutel? How do you spell it?
Hassan Hutel.
Hassan Hutel?
Yeah. Hassan Hutel, yeah. We'll give you that.
Yeah, I like him a lot. I like Nuno at Wolves, and I like Rodgers. Yeah. Ideally, for me, I would have liked to go into the summer and had maybe Rodgers come in. If he would have wanted to come, I don't know. He might have looked at us and thought, you know what, you don't get any time up there. I love Leicester. I'm not coming to Chelsea, but I would have liked to have gone for him. But yeah, Tuchel, he's a decent manager. He was highly rated, and let's not forget he got to a Champions League final last year. You don't get Champions League finals if you're a poor manager. He's a good manager.
I mean, I don't know tons about him. So earlier, when obviously all this news was breaking, I did a bit of research and had a look back on how he did, mainly at Dortmund and PSG. I mean, he took over at Dortmund literally to follow Jurgen Klopp, who became a hero there, as he seems to do everywhere he bloody goes. But they didn't just lose Klopp; they lost Lewandowski that summer. So he came into a transitioning team, struggled in the first season, but then the second season, just here I can see. Yeah, he was runner-up to Bayern Munich. You're pretty much always going to do that. It's almost impossible not to. He got to the final of the Cups, and then in his third season, he managed to win the Cup. And both seasons that he was in the Champions League, he topped the group with the eventual winners. So he's been there, done it, and won some big games again with PSG, getting to the final. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does in the Premier League. And mention Klopp there. Liverpool have been struggling a bit recently, Dan. We're not going to let you off the hook, mate. What's going on with Jurgen? He's moaning at the media. He doesn't seem to be able to get his strikers to score. What's going on?
Well, firstly, with Jurgen moaning at the media, what manager doesn't? Mourinho, Fergie, Wenger, Pep, they'll all moan at it because it takes the heat off their players. As for the players, I think it's just it's fatigue, injuries, anything that potentially can go wrong against us, going wrong against us. Not to sound bitter, but fatigue and injuries are quite massive. We've spoken off air loads of times. We say these players have played each other for 3 years without really getting any freshness or competition in, and then this season when we do bring in Jota and Thiago, both are sidelines for a long time. So we said last year about Man City not being able to catch up with Liverpool because they've had 2 years of non-stop running with such intensity. And now it looks like it's Liverpool's turn to sit back, look at the drawing board, get some rest in, and look at where they can add some competition to places so that players aren't, mid-season being exhausted out on their feet.
Yeah, I take your point, but I mean, in response, the difference between Liverpool and what City were doing, City were going after every trophy. It doesn't seem like Klopp wants to go for every trophy. He doesn't really put out strong teams in the Carabao Cup. He's got a shit record in the FA Cup. You're struggling in the league at the moment. Not to say you're not out of the title race or anything, but do you not feel like you have to win one of those two big ones now? Otherwise, it's a bad season.
Yeah, I understand. If Liverpool come out of the season with just top four, it's a poor season. You're reigning champion. Season before you won the Champions League. Personally, I would like to at least go on an FA Cup run and see if we could have won it. We haven't won it since 2006. I look at the team right now. The squad is so bare. We don't have the bodies to, in all three competitions. And if we do play in all competitions, then we're going to be seeing people like Reece Williams, who last season was on loan to a conference team, and now he's starting games for the Premier League champions. You can see he's out of the depths, and to have him then playing, heaven forbid Fabinho gets injured, then who are we going to play at the back? Jordan Henderson? Are we going to play, one of the other young centre-backs we have? So I think he does have a poor record in the Cups, but I think that's probably just down to that we don't really have the bodies for Cup runs. City have a huge squad, always do have a huge squad. And, unfortunately we don't, and our players just seem to be a bit brittle this season.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of excuses there. Dan, I mean, what do you think of that, Dan Bush? I mean, you're a Chelsea fan, I'm a United fan. As big as Liverpool are, and as great as they've been, or supposedly great over the last 2 to 3 seasons, why don't they have a squad that can compete on all fronts? Why shouldn't they be going for all 4 trophies that they are now?
Yeah, it's a good time actually, because before we've heard for the last 2 or 3 years is they're untouchable. They're this great outfit. They can't be stopped. What I will say is that we started to see the first signs of cracks. Klopp come out and said, I can't spend money that they won't give me. So obviously the ball's turned around to him and say, you'll have to make do with what you've got. We've spent big on, for all their talk about how they, manage their books and stuff and sell players and buy players. At the end of the day, to win consistently, you have to spend money. And that's the end. That's all it is. That's the end of it. You can only go so long, on that model of, selling players and buying players. People give a stick about these teams, about City, Chelsea, United to an extent, about how much money they spend. But that's what's necessary to keep competing every year, because eventually a team goes stale. There's only so long you can. And I'm not saying they've gone stale. They've been very unlucky with injuries, but to play at that level for that amount of time, the same players, it gets boring as well for players. Can you imagine just doing the same thing day in, day out and whatever, and not having that freshness around you and that competition to keep you on your toes? Me and Dan spoke about it the other day about why Ferguson was so successful. And every season he brought in fresh new players to challenge that squad, and it lifted the club. And I know they brought in Thiago this year, and I know they brought in Jota, which they've been unlucky with because both had injuries. But I think not getting defensive reinforcements was a bad mistake, because you can't plan that you're never going to get them injuries happening to you. And it happened, unfortunately, that 2 of the best centre-backs at the club went around the same time. But not getting them bodies and not getting that defensive reinforcements and really come back to bite them on the arse. And now we'll kind of see what Klopp and what the team is made of, I think. Yeah,
it's it's nice. You use the right word there. It's lovely to see. Do you think he will? Do you think he will arrest the slide that you're on at the minute and ultimately be there or thereabouts end of the season? What do you actually think the way things are going?
I'll be honest with you, and we say all the time, this season is crazy. 6 weeks ago, Liverpool beat Spurs, who are our title challengers. We then beat Palace 7-0, and we're favourites for the title. A month later, we haven't scored, we haven't won, and we've now 7 points off Arsenal, who were miles behind us. No,
just rewind 30 seconds and just say all of that one more time for me, please. Just start from in the last month. We haven't.
Can you say that again? Just as you said it.
Yeah, that was nice. That was lovely.
No, it's the players look exhausted. That's the main problem. And you look at our run of fixtures coming up. We've got City coming up, Chelsea coming up, Spurs on Thursday. Players don't lose. When you're exhausted, you're only going to keep getting exhausted. And these games coming thick and fast. So I am a bit worried. And I'll be quite worried if we don't bring in a centre-back, because Dan said it was criminal not to get in the summer. Then it's terrorism not to do it now then. You know, we're crying out for it. You want to expand and build every season. But to take away and not to help Jurgen and the boys, for me, it's inexcusable not to. It's amateurish.
I think we have to stop it on that bombshell. Jurgen Klopp is a terrorist. What I just said.
The board is young.
And that is not cool.
Yeah.
The boardroom's the only place that smile's not working. But nice to sit here and smile at you boys. Everything's going wrong for you at the minute. It's sitting pretty at the moment.
I've learnt my lesson. I have, and I can say it here as a man and say it. You will not hear me talk shit anymore, because I don't know what's going to happen. And I'm not.
Anybody wants to go back and listen to an podcast of Jamie Slayton, Man United's board and manager, and Pogba, please rewatch. Thank you.
They don't exist. They've all been taken down. I did it before we came on, boys. No, it's you've touched on it there. It's a fickle sport. It moves so fast. We love it. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens for Lampard. Hopefully, Klopp follows Lampard soon. There'll be you can tell him to fuck off from a beach instead of the Anfield touchline.
We will be top in April.
Nicks his deck chair.
You heard it here first.
I was going to say, we'll finish on a little prediction just for you two. Who finishes top, not top of the league, but top in the league at Chelsea and Liverpool, based on what's going on as we speak?
I think we got a 5-point head start. I'm going to stick with the ball red.
Yeah. New manager bound?
Yeah, I'm interested. It's going to be an exciting few months. It's either going to hit the ground running and things are going to really click into place for us, or we find out that the players weren't really up to it and Lampard was probably right all along. But I have to go Liverpool. I still think Liverpool will be there and thereabouts, as much as they're having a bad run. I think Klopp's a good enough manager to arrest that kind of slide. And look, it's an exciting season. Let's hope it continues the way it is, and hopefully Man City win the league.
Oh, we can't end on that. That's crass.
Yeah,
top four. You still get top four? You're a ninth at the minute, 5 points off.
Yeah, top four. Yeah.
At whose expense?
It'll be City, United, Liverpool, Chelsea.
Yeah.
Let's dropping out.
Agree with that?
They'll drop. Yeah.
Agree with that, Dan?
Yeah. I mean, Leicester have Europa League, so I think naturally they'll drop off by fatigue. As for Chelsea jumping in, I don't know, mate. Southampton are looking pretty good, mate. Anyone who beats Liverpool, good team.
True. Everyone's beating Liverpool, though.
A lot of people are drawing against us. And as Pep Guardiola says, Sam Allardyce, footballing genius. Who am I to argue?
Yeah, we'll stay on that one. No, fair enough, boys. No, it's been a good chat. It's been nice to see. We'll see what happens. I'm sure we'll have another chat about Chelsea soon. See how Tuchel's getting on. Hopefully, we have a similar chat about Klopp. Any good news stories you want to bring out? Anything you've seen? Little anecdotes to end on?
Sam Allardyce getting called a football genius by Pep Guardiola.
Yeah, that's
pretty
comedy. Yeah.
I don't know the score, but apparently Wickham were 1-0 up against Spurs. That's a David versus Goliath. Oh, that's gone downhill. I was watching on +1.
Yeah.
Well, I think Bale got a goal worth every penny of that.
About fucking time.
What a player.
Oh, he scored in the fourth round of the FA Cup at Wickham. What more do you want?
Yeah.
What we will do soon is we'll have an episode where we have a laugh at Spurs. Been a while.
I can do that.
Yeah. and they are a
Hopefully
laughing stock.
Thursday when Liverpool beat him.
Well, I was going to say this. It's set up for you boys to spank someone. I was shitting myself if it was going to be us yesterday, but then the big man popped up and showed that he can do it in big games. So
Yeah,
going to Mourinho's ground. He's the king of not conceding. At the minute, you're the kings of not scoring. Something's got to...
Something's got to give.
Something's got to give, isn't it?
It's got 0-0 written all over it.
Yeah, you've jinxed it, Jay.
Famous last word.
Just two teams.
I all know a certain Spurs fan who does everybody heads in, and I hope for the sake of humanity that we knock him for 10, just so everyone can give it to him. And we don't know what we're talking about.
Ruin his birthday.
Ruin his year. I want him to remember this, and every time he goes to sleep, he sees a goal going.
One thing we do know, it won't shut him up.
No, it will not, unfortunately.
No, we'll leave it there. We'll say thank you to everyone that continues to watch, listen, subscribe, etc. Really appreciate it. Hopefully we have Connor back soon. He's obviously not available this evening, but I'm sure he'll be back with us soon. And we'll be back with hopefully a lot more for you guys within the next couple of weeks.
Top banana.
Cheers.
For now, say see you later.